Sorry we're late, but we're here now. Right, we're joined this hour by Stu from the War Cradle team and Free, and of course Jerry. And we're going to have a chat about the return of the Dystopian. By Stu from the War Cradle. Yeah, and if somebody's got me on, and if you turn me off. So Stu, are you receiving me?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
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 I think there's a bit of a delay.
I think, Stu, you're listening to me through the actual live show. You want to turn the live show off?
Probably. How's that?
That'll probably work a lot better now. Yeah.
How's that? There we go.
Perfect.
Right. So, Stu, Dystopian Wars returns in all its glory. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the journey that it's been on?
Yeah. So, Dystopian Wars itself began many years ago, and I remember doing stuff back in the day with what was Beasts of War before you guys had your revamp, and we played all sorts of stuff. It was a great game, really iconic game, different because it had certain themes like sort of steampunky type stuff. In fact, it was steampunk before, or it had that kind of steampunky vibe before steampunk became really, really, really popular. It was just at the start of things getting, it kind of riffed more on the whole Jules Verne type, that kind of, more that style rather than clockwork and gears on everything kind of thing. But yeah, so really interesting when it first took on. I think its success took the original company that had it, Spartan, maybe a little bit by surprise. Previously, they were big with Uncharted Seas and what have you, and Dystopian Wars really took off, really kind of captured imagination. Fast forward several years, and through a number of reasons, Spartan unfortunately sank beneath the waves, and there was an opportunity to, well, one of two things was going to happen. Either sort of the well-meaning community was going to try and sort of grab the game and kind of drag it along for a bit, and it would kind of continue as it was, but really by the time Dystopian Wars were kind of faded out from its kind of what we call the classic era now, it was, though it had lots more units, it hadn't really advanced in terms of it was still very much resin miniatures with metal drop. It was very much the kind of game, and the technology behind it and the vibe of it was just a kind of a continuation of where it was when it first got started. So we had talked internally, and we already had Wild Exodus, which we had kind of breathed new life into and reworked and reimagined, because we saw something in there that could benefit from sort of significant investment, significant kind of a shot in the arm, and what have you. And with Dystopian Wars, we absolutely saw the opportunity. Can you hear me bleeping? I apologise. I think something's bleeping in the background.
Oh, don't worry about it.
No, it's dead now. So with Dystopian Wars, there was that opportunity to really give it that huge investment, that put a full design team on it. I mean, people that have followed War Cradle know that we have got some really, really talented people within the studio, and the idea of letting them loose on what was a really great property was very exciting. So Dystopian Wars went away for a while. It kind of went a bit quiet, and behind the scenes, hundreds of thousands of man hours in concept art, in kind of really reworking and reimagining what this could be, because there was the opportunity. What excited me was there was the opportunity for Dystopian Wars, rather than Dystopian Wars being the be all and end all of itself, there was the opportunity for it to be a really powerful part of a wider world, because the background to the original Dystopian Wars was only ever really detailed insofar as the empires and how they fought against each other, which is great for a for a naval combat game. But there was that opportunity to kind of flesh that world out more, and really to kind of get a sense of what's it like for the average person living in that kind of world. What's it like so if you ever wanted to drop a role play game into the dystopian age, as the setting became known as, what opportunities could there be? And so with that in mind, with the idea of taking the game away from the public view for a couple of years, in fact, and reworking it, reimagining it, there was the opportunity to kind of really draw on the strong vibes, the strong tropes and ideas behind the game that we all fell in love with and inspired us to begin with, and add to them some of the things that we had learned with working on Wild West Exodus, and also some of the things I think that the gaming world expects from games now. I mean, don't forget, Dystopian Wars, by the time it's coming back now for its third edition, the game has been around for a decade or more, in fact. So it is overdue for a refresh, and that's really what this is. So it's coming back. It's a new edition. It is a new Dystopian Wars. It is a continuation of the spirit of the classic game, but it is a new game. It's so for everybody that never really got on board with it before, or got excited about it before, or kind of saw it, but maybe saw the rule book and all the charts and things and thought, maybe not. It's a great opportunity to get in on this now. This is day one for everybody, and I think in that regard, it's a fresh take on the setting, but it's also, as fans of the game in its previous generations have already seen, there's loads of lineage coming through, loads of design, loads of the game mechanics, things that are familiar to players of old are back, but they might have a slightly different spin, or they might be presented in a slightly different way, but it will feel like the Dystopian Wars people have loved, but it is a new take on it. The closest I could equate it to would be something like Battlestar Galactica. So the Galactica reboot, which I don't know if anybody watched, but I thought was very good. But I also love the original, and I can love the new one and really enjoy the new version. And it doesn't take away my love for the original. It is clearly a different thing to the original, and that was very much of its time. But you can love both equally, and you can enjoy both equally, and both have their merits. But if you wanted a very flashy, cinematic, modern take on something, you want the new version.
Well, that's a question that I wanted to ask. Okay, game design's an incredible minefield to find yourself within. Okay, but the best designers have almost like core principles and things that they'll bring to a game. They'll look at a game, they'll look at the IP, and they'll set their core principles that they're going to try and build it around. So whenever you guys approached the game design for Dystopian Wars, what was it you were trying to achieve, Stu? Or like, what was it you wanted us as gamers to take away from that first few games of Dystopian Wars?
Okay, yeah, really good question. It is a game. It's a naval war game, so fundamentally, it can't feel like you're playing 40k or even Wild West Exodus, where the ships, the things that you're commanding, need to feel like ships. They need to feel like these hundreds of meter long craft with dozens, hundreds, thousands of souls on board. Yeah, it needs to feel true to what we're trying to show, which is being a naval game. It means that things don't tend to dart around incredibly quickly either. They do move fairly quickly, but the way they move, it's more kind of like a ballet on the water rather than a dogfight. Ships don't turn on a dime. Gyros do, and war rotors, but we'll come to them later. But the actual submarines certainly don't. It's It's more the kind of the graceful. It's more Star Trek than Star Wars, if you were to kind of for the visuals. So it's about large things kind of passing each other, Battle of Trafalgar kind of stuff with like the roar of broadsides and things and jet guns hammering away, rather than quick and brutal. So it's a different kind of cinematic experience. That's all we want people to have. We also want people to come away feeling that it is exciting though. That it isn't just because engagement in kind of real time, the naval engagement might take a couple of hours. You don't want the game experience to feel like the naval experience, where essentially it's lots and lots of maneuvering, and then all the guns fire and loads of stuff sunk, and then the ships continue to just move away from each other again. That's less exciting. So the spirit of what that is, in other words, how positioning your ships is really important, and lining them up and then getting that sweet spot where you get most of your weapons come to bear at that critical moment and you catch them in the right way. That's absolutely what we wanted, and that's what we've got in the game. But also, it does still need to be fun. Stuff still needs to die in the first 5 minutes of the game, potentially. There still needs to be, squadrons of fighters thundering away from the flight decks and going out to go kill some stuff. You still need to be able to do some kind of boarding action. So there's a wealth of things, and also you're not playing something excellent but different like Cruel Seas or a Napoleonic's naval game or something. This is dystopian wars, so there's also weird stuff. So you have Vitruvian colossi, which are basically large. They're not robots because they're piloted by crew.
People are talking about the sprue in the chat. So while you're waffling, I thought I'll introduce some people who haven't had the sprues in their hands to see them.
Waffling.
Yeah, waffling.
It's your mother with that now. Anyway. Yeah. So you have something. So you have all the really cool stuff as well. So I mean, okay. So let's talk about the plastics, and then Jerry, people are big cursing you because I started to talk about Vitruvian colossi, and which I've not really talked about ever.
No, we haven't.
And now I'm not going to talk about them. We're going to talk about everybody's already seen.
I would just move on.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't want to waffle. So. Yeah. So okay. Yeah. So you can see up on the screen there. So you've got all the various cruisers. One of the things we talked about earlier, I mentioned about technology and how there was an opportunity with investment that we could make dystopian wars technologically a kind of a more advanced game. And I don't mean technologically in terms of we're looking at the Enlightenment, that is ironic, but I don't mean technologically in terms of the in-game technology. I mean the technology used to create the things that you're going to play with. So
yes.
The studio uses the latest in 3D rendering software. We have the very latest in computer-aided design stuff. The CNC, so the big like, kind of drilling machines that kind of carve into big blocks of aluminium and steel. We've got those running in there. We've got the plastic injection equipment and things. Because we own and operate every part of the process now, we can do everything in-house. We have complete control over every aspect. And you can see in some of the earlier earlier Wild West Exodus miniatures, so the plastics that were made in the early days of that were designed in-house, but then they were sent away to a great company who then broke them down into a billion pieces and 8 parts to a leg kind of thing, and then you could build them. Weird miniatures have a kind of similar vibe to some of the earlier stuff that we had. What we have the opportunity now, though, is that because we have because it's war games, tabletop gamers that are operating the machinery, that are doing every part of the process, when they're designing things on the sprues, little things like there was the opportunity to make the guns. We could actually do the gun turrets slightly differently, but they would come in 2 pieces. And it was decided, let's not do that, because yes, it's only an extra couple of minutes here or there, but actually the gun turrets are going to be on every single thing you're ever going to build on this thing. And after a while, that's going to really start to suck the life out of people. A bit like when the bolt gun used to be separate on the Space Marine sprue. You knew that, well, I've got 100 guys, so I've got to stick that gun 100 times and line up the two arms to get. There was little hobby things that you started to really start to drain the joy out of it. So we've tried with these, and these are some of our first few plastics. So each time they will get better and better. But I think, so I mean, these Russian ships that you're seeing now for the Commonwealth, these are the first plastics that the manufacturing team miniatures. I mean, they've made other things, base toppers and templates and bits and pieces. But these are the first miniatures that they have ever created. I mean, they've done them off the backs of giants because they've taken brilliant design work and plastic technologies and things and lessons learned from everybody else that's been doing plastic. So I'm not saying that, oh, yeah, it's the first time we've ever done anything. Look what we've done. You know, we've taken steps from other people, but I think they've done a fantastic job in realizing what the studio kind of conceived. And there's loads of detail on them. Visually, they don't look like anything else, but they absolutely look like they belong in some kind of that Jules Verne, War of the Worlds kind of weird vibe thing going on. They absolutely feel dystopian aged. I'm really proud of what they've done. And what's great is it's one plastic kit that makes 6 different cruiser designs and 2 different frigate designs. And you also get a little, I don't know if you get a picture, you get a little flight SRS, a little short-range squadron token with some fighter aircraft. There's a little fighter you can see up on the flight deck, that little launch ramp there, like a spotter. Well, you get a token with that as well, which is where you can launch your fighters and send them out on sorties to go and annoy people. So yeah, the kit,
so
being able to control the plastics lets us do all of that.
Yeah, I want to try and nutshell the game here, right? So anybody that's new to Dystopian Wars, okay, I want to talk about what they can expect from this game. So they're going to have a cool naval battle. There's is there boarding actions? Is there aircraft bombing each other? Can you talk us through, like, what are we going to? What could a new person experience by playing this game?
Yes. All of
that. Everything.
The question.
Yeah.
Well, then Stu, let me challenge you one step further then. And this is the most important question in the chat. This person is going to get a prize. Is there a ramming speed?
There absolutely is. You can ram in the game. You might not want to ram because this. Okay, so there was two things. There was 2 things that we established when we were, because you asked about what was kind of inspiring us and we were thinking about. There was 2 things that really we kept in mind. So yes, there is, you can board people, but it isn't the Spanish Main. You're not seizing the ships and immediately turning their weapons on the enemy and starting to blast them and stuff, because the enemy is using very different ships to you. And also I mean, I say modern day, but I mean, this is the 1870s, but with the way the technology is pretty advanced still. On board those, even a frigate is a metal castle with 100 lockable doors, with everybody carrying a gun. The idea that you would just jump a team on board and immediately take command within the time scale of a round of a game is even more unbelievable than the Vitruvian Colossi. So that's not something that. So we've allowed boarding action because we think it's a cool thing. It's fun. Yeah, the idea of, particularly visually, you've got guys like jetpacks, like Rocketeer. You've got little personal portal generators and weird five-setter constructs. Five-setters being sperm whales for those that know their genealogy. Their taxonomy, should I say? So there's also some weird and wonderful stuff. You have the Ica Kaiju, which are the big mechanical squid things. There's all sorts of stuff. So boarding and grabbing hold of an enemy ship is absolutely something in the game. But taking control of a ship is outside of something extraordinary, isn't something that is is routine. And so that is something that's in the game. And then ramming. So ramming, this is not, you're not playing Assassin's Creed or something like that, where you've got your big keel ram on the front of every single ship and you're just plowing through everybody. Like that's just not how ships aren't designed to ram everybody. If your ship is designed to ram people, then that's cool. So some ships have rams. The British, the Crown, the front of their ships, they have these big reinforced rams. But like the Enlightened, for example, they're not so big on ramming. They don't. They prefer to use weird particle beams and strange teleporters and the surgically enhanced whales and whatever else they've got going on to take care of their enemy from a little bit more of a distance. They don't tend to plow their technologically prototype warships into other ships and just like hammer them away. They're a little bit more refined. Whereas, as I say, the British prowls have even got on the British battleship. We don't have a picture, unfortunately, but British battleship not only got like the prow is like the kind of arrowhead, but it has these two cheeks to the side, which are pneumatic, which are designed to slide forward to then. Because it's one thing to ram somebody, you need to push off again afterwards so that you can go after somebody else. So that's a whole thing. The ramming is definitely part of the game, but it is not the be all and end all. And be prepared that just because you can ram doesn't mean that you are invulnerable to taking damage. It's still slamming at high speed, one big lump of metal against another, which has some risk.
I want to talk about the 2-player starter set. Okay, we are now on the cusp of the 2-player starter sets being available to folk. I am waiting for our studio copies to arrive so that we can get an unboxing and have a good old look at it. But Jerry, if you bring up the overall screen of all the pictures, okay, and zoom out for me there. So is this basically the contents, right? So if you click on that 2-player starter set contents there at the top.
Not
there we go. Right. So that is a 2-player starter set, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So in there, people are going to get their rule books, they're getting their tokens. You have little bits and pieces of iceberg, card terrain and stuff to get you started. Some of the highlights, Stu, I want to ask about. Dice. So there looks to be quite a lot of dice in that starter set, and there's custom dice. So what kind of dice mechanics can we expect from the game?
Okay, so the core dice mechanic is one which players for classic game will be familiar with, which is basically you're rolling. The way the game works is that it's about you have a target number that you're trying to achieve in terms of getting through your opponent's armor, essentially. Okay, so in order to do that, you're hitting them with guns. The idea is that depending on how tough the armor, what you might want to do is group guns. So rather than just firing single gun, you can actually group fire weapons of the same type, and to try and get this kind of overwhelming barrage of death, which will breach the armor and hopefully wreak havoc through the various ship systems. And again, it's interesting with the way the dice work. So they're color coded. So the idea is that rather than sort of scrabbling around and then go, oh, I need 3s, I need 4s. See, that works in a game, again, going back to something like Warhammer 40,000 or something along those lines, or even War Machine or something, where the target number is, so I need 4s or more, or something like that. When you need that kind of intuitive, I need this number or higher. In Dystopian Wars, it's not quite the same as you can see on any one of the dice. There you go. So you see, you've got, for example, hits. So you've got a single hit, which is the little red splodge. You've got a double hit, so a heavy hit, which is 2 hits, essentially, which is 2 splodges, nice and symbolically sensible. And then you have the big Dystopian Wars anchor in red, which is an exploding hit. And what an exploding hit means is that not only do you get 2 hits from that, you also then get to pick up another die and roll that and add, if there are any hits on that, that gets added into the pile as well. If you rolled an exploding hit again, you would pick up another dice and you would roll that in there. And And in theory, I mean, you start getting real marginal, but it is the moment you dine out on that dice roll eventually. If you have the dice roll where your frigate rips a hole through a battleship because you just can't help it, I just keep rolling exploding hits, then yeah, absolutely, the drinks are on everybody else. But the reason I mentioned the reason we went with symbols, so you see there's a blank face. So a blank face is no matter what you roll, and the blank is a blank. So it's a zero result. And then you have the defensive, you have a single blue shield or a double blue shield. There is no exploding defensive roll. So that's where the mechanism starts. So attacking, aggression is always something that can be, if fortune is with you, can really give you something. And to be honest, because as players, really, it's more enjoyable to cause damage and blow things up than it is to save everything. Saving everything is kind of a bit frustrating after a while. So the game mechanic is skewed so that even in the law of averages, everything's going to sink eventually. And the trick is sinking your opponent's stuff before your stuff gets sunk.
Right.
But we moved away from the numerical faces, and I know there will be some people who don't like funny dice or think it's a gimmick or what have you. But there really was logic behind it. There's two. First of all, we used two contrasting colours. Not only do we use contrasting colours, we do a lot of work in terms of people with visual difficulties, and so not only are they two different colours, they are two different
shapes.
The strength
they're visually different
as well. So so again, even if you were seeing monochromatically, one would appear a lot darker than the other. If you were blue colorblind, or you were red colorblind, or really unfortunately red-blue colorblind, again, you would still be able to immediately tell the difference between them, not just for the shape, but actually the shade of the dice would still seem different to you. So we put a lot of work into that, and because we want, just Open Wars is about lots of dice, whereas Wild West Exodus, you roll one dice and that determines everything, which brings its own beads of sweat down the face. Dystopian Wars is about buckets and buckets of dice. So you need a way to be able to immediately dive into these 20, 30 dice you've just rolled and immediately start picking out all of your hits or your blocks or whatever it is that your counters, that you're trying to get out of it. So we wanted to make sure that visually it was really quick for people, but also because we knew how we wanted the game mechanic to work, it's not intuitive. So if you could say, okay, a blank is 1, okay, and an exploding hit is a 6, which means a double hit is a 5, which means a single hit is a 4, which means a double counter is a 3, and then a single counter is a 1. It stops being intuitive. I'm after 2s and 3s. I'm after, I've got this special rule coming in, which means my double counters count as singles now, or ignore. I don't know. There's all sorts of weird and wonderful things you can start to lever. You can leverage in the game mechanic when you're using symbols rather than numbers. So I promise it's not a gimmick. It is, if I'll be honest, it's no more a gimmick than Hero Quest or Blood Bowl or any of these other great games have used over the years and have made great use out of pictographic dice like this. But for those that are real diehards, we have included in the rule book a scale 1 to 6 against each of the faces. And if you really did just want to use picked dice, I'm not going to tell you how to play your game. You can go and do that. It just might take you slightly longer to work out what's going on.
So the other thing that I'd noticed, and I did actually get sent one, is templates. So if we have a look at the templates in there, so there's an expanding range ruler, okay, that is in 2 parts. But I noticed that if you had 2 sets of templates, you can turn one of them over and it could be in 3 parts. That's quite a bit of range, yeah. You also have, I don't know, is it like a flamer blast template, and then this other one which Is it a movement template? Talk me through them.
Yeah, okay. So you've got your range ruler, which is the 1 to 10, but you're quite right, Warren, if you ended up getting a second set, and let's be honest, they're included in the gubbin set, they're included in, which is a product coming out later, which gives you the rules and the dice separately with no models. They're in the 2-player starter set. They're also War Cradle gaming aids, so they are used in other games. The new Wild West Exodus will use that. Moving swiftly on. The other games that we may or may not be developing also make use of this. So people will end up getting, inadvertently, they'll end up getting more than one set, we thought. So actually, if somebody was going to get more than one set, there was an opportunity to do something with that. So the reverse of the one of them, I can't remember which one it is. I think it's the 5 to 10, I believe. On the flip side of it, it goes. No, it's not. It is the 5 to 10, I believe. On the flip side of it, there is a. It then goes 11 to 15. So actually, you can go longer. So we did that. It was just an extra thing because there was the opportunity to do it, and it just seemed, we could. And again, it's that whole thing where you get gamers doing things and looking at things, as they're like mucking about with stuff, they go, could we? Is there some way we could do that? Whereas if you had a third party, if you just sent them that design, just send it off to a third party, they're unlikely to do anything other than what you've asked them to do, because why would they do anything other than you've asked them to do? Whereas obviously the drawback of having a studio full of creative people and a manufacturing team full of creative people is getting them to only do what you ask them to do is incredibly difficult. But yes, so it's like herding cats. It's minds of their own sometimes. But there you go. But yes, so that's the measuring. Yes, that is a flame template. It's also, you can see the arc on the circle at the front, the large circle is the blast. Mm-hmm. So different game effects. In Dystopian Wars, there are several weapons that use the blast or the flame, the entire of the template. If you are a fan of the Chinese tend to make use of prow-mounted giant napalm flamethrower things. Oh, wow. Set in the sea alight, so that's quite nasty. And there's all manner of other weirdness. So that's what uses those templates. And then the little kind of angled piece to the far right of the screen, that is the turning template. Remember I talked about the ballet of these naval ships? The way to ensure that is ships have what they call a turn limit. So every ship in the game has a number of turns that it can make. It can't turn infinitely. And on the whole, the larger the ship, the less number of turns that it can make. They can all move at similar, not quite, but similar speeds to each other. They're all going to be moving probably about 10 inches or so a turn, because they can, thunder away if they need to. But it's turning is the bit that the ships find more difficult. And that's where Dystopian Wars is a positional game. Getting forward and getting your weapons into range is not difficult. Getting your ships positioned kind of across the board is much, or the ocean, much harder. And there are special maneuvers, like you can go all stop. You can put the engines in reverse and kind of chug very slowly into position if you want, but you are opening yourself up for all manner of retribution if you were going to stop your ship and slowly start to turn, because there are all sorts of benefits and drawbacks to being stationary in the middle of a naval engagement.
Fantastic. Right. One last question, Stu, because I know we are going to get you onto the show over the next while, because I want to look in more detail at this. But for folks that are new to this, they know that you guys do Wild West Exodus and Dystopian Wars. But I just wanted to give you a chance to explain to folks this overarching. They're part of the same world. and the overall world, the overall universe that these IPs live in, that's the dystopian age, yeah?
Yes, that is
Can you kind of
absolutely.
give us a bit of a nutshell so that if anybody is exploring this, so they can get a feel for, well, actually, I can explore this universe, this world building from a number of different angles.
Yeah, okay. But in very, very brief terms, I mean, it's worth mentioning, by the way, in terms of people that like a bit of flavour, a bit of background. The background or the rule book that you could see for Dystopian Wars, about 40, it's a 150-page book, and about 40, about 40 odd, 45 pages is rules. All the rest of it's background. So there's an absolute ton of background. The setting and the way the way the setting is designed, it's designed where you have 8 great powers. So there's 8. The world is kind of roughly divided into eight superpowers, for that word, and they are positioning each other to gain an advantage. So that because they all know that there is probably some terrible war is going to break out. The things have gone on too long, and the people, the politics, and the propaganda has kind of gone on for too long. That really that there is likely to be any kind of peace between these 8 powers. And there is a world war brewing. And what Dystopian Wars and all the other dystopian age games are in the shadow of that looming war. So Dystopian Wars deals with the kind of the opening steps of a much wider conflict. So you have the powers flexing, and because the open seas are open to anybody. I mean, you have territorial water around your coastline, but in the middle of the Atlantic or what have you is game. So you have the Dystopian Wars lets you obviously lets the great powers kind of flex their military muscles against each other without embarking on devastating land wars and things where countries start getting wiped out of existence. So it is the early stages of a world war, effectively. But the way the setting is designed, though, it is still the 1870s. So it isn't like we have now, where you have 24-hour television, you have embedded reporters everywhere, you have instantaneous transmission of information all over the globe. So things can happen, and it is weeks before people are aware of what's happened, and maybe they'll never be aware of truly what's happened because of the distances involved, because of often governments will take a position to have an official account of what's happened out in the world, and that may not be really what happened, but it's politically suitable to acknowledge that there was a misunderstanding, or there was a storm at sea, or whatever the reason, or it was a minor skirmish, but it's been sorted out, which is slim comfort for the 300, 400 sailors that drown in the battle. But as long as the tea keeps flowing into the British Empire, who cares? So yeah, there is very much the dystopian age is very much about the massive superpowers fundamentally trying to, like tectonic plates, they're kind of grinding against each other, and where they're grinding against each other, that's where the games take place. That's where these battles and these conflicts take place. Largely, the people running these great powers don't care about the individuals involved. They don't care about the common man and woman. But that said, it's not a miserable place, because there is in these cracks between these great powers, and in places, these frontiers like the Wild West, like the Lost World in Antarctica, and other places, and there is the opportunity for adventure, for like kind of the pulp Indiana Jones style, Rocketeer style, Boy's Own Mystery, whatever. There is all this. So Jesse James can go and be the king of the Wild West kind of thing, and it's cool. You can have one man or one woman really kind of fighting to make a difference. That in these places across the world, that is absolutely, so on the ground on a day-to-day, that is absolutely what is happening. But in the kind of the grand scheme of things, in the grand, in the grand courts of Queen Victoria and so on, don't care. it's nonsense. But it's interesting because on the flip side, Jesse James, when he's sitting in his outhouse straining one out out in the Badlands, he's not really caring about the burning of the sacking of Singapore or anything like that. He might read that in a newspaper as he's taking in the views, or he might maybe there's like the murders in Whitechapel might make a Penny Dreadful or something, or a little dime novel or something. But the stories become legends as they cross the Atlantic and so on anyway. And really, people are still largely preoccupied with their own lives, and that's still very much a kind of a core part of the dystopian age. It is about the people in this horrible industrial uncaring world that they find themselves in, but there's individual glory and individual legends to be found there. And what Dystopian Wars, as part of that setting, lets you do is it lets you effectively fight out the ambitions of admirals and commodores and prime ministers and presidents and whatever else, as they go, oh yeah, that little spot of the ocean there, or there's some strange deposit or lights in the sky or whatever. We're going to send an expeditionary fleet out to just to secure that for the for Queen and country and what have you. And that's what Dystopian Wars lets you do. It lets you it lets you play a naval expedition.
Awesome. Right. I'm going to catch up on a couple of prizes here. Okay. First prize that I'm giving away is a Fog and Friction box, and that's going to go to Dutch Jaffo for his amazing question about ramming speed, because it has to be. It has to happen. It has to happen. The other thing we're giving away is a Dystopian Wars bundle. Okay. I have been watching the chat during all of this, so we were going to pick a lucky winner from the Twitch chat. Okay, and if it's okay by you guys, I have selected one.
Absolutely.
Okay. This commenter asked, Hi Whalen Games, do we know what distributors might carry it in the United States? I want to get it through my FLGS, and I'd really like to make it as easy as I can for them. Now, let me just say, good on you, that man, supporting the FLGSs. We like that. Hunt Rigs, we're going to go one step better. While Free and the crew find out and maybe get back to you guys about distribution, how you're going to get access to all of that, you've just won yourself a bundle. And I'm only going to ask you one favor, man. Take it to your FLGS and let people play it with you. And share the love and enjoy it, my friend. Enjoy it. So yeah, congratulations, Hunt Riggs. You have just won yourself a Dystopian Wars bundle. Well done.
Well done. On the subject of sharing the love, Dutch Jaffo won Fog and Friction in an earlier stream. So
he did not.
He did. So do we want to share his love by giving that to somebody else rather than giving him two?
Too much love.
Things be given away.
Yeah,
far too many.
Dutch Jaffo.
I told him they could have one and share it between 10 people.
Your prize this time is not Fog and Friction. Your prize is you get to choose someone else, and they'll get Fog and Friction. Okay.
While he's thinking
all you have to do is post the name of somebody within the chat, and we will reroute that second copy to them, and they will love you hard forever.
Absolutely. Sharing is caring.
Yeah, a couple of questions, Stuart, in the chat. One was, are we going to see any terrain, either plastic or resin, for
You've got cardboard icebergs. What more do you want?
That's well, if they want more than that, Lloyd can show them how to do it out of foam. I'm pretty sure. You just have to rip up your chairs.
We are working on some. We are working on some terrain. There is terrain coming. There's.
I hear your chest freezer is full of the new iceberg terrain you're going to be shipping out. You just can't find a way to ship it. Yeah,
that's the thing. We just can't get it to people in time. No, we have a whole bunch of terrain coming. In fact, I was in a design meeting last week about it. We have a mixture. We have some resin bits and pieces. We also have a whole load of plastic terrain coming. Just because we're making everything ourselves, we had a choice between giving people more ships or giving people islands. And although once you've got the ships you want, you absolutely want islands, but until you have the ships you want, you don't want to get islands. So you will see the train coming, but it will be coming once we've got the first few factions out. We're assuming that people, I mean, so you do get cardboard, you get some icebergs and things in the 2-player starter set. And if people wanted to be ingenious and make their own bits and pieces, we assume people are going to do that for the short term until the cool dystopian age naval terrain comes out, which will be later on. It will be this year. It will be in the next 6 months. You will see some stuff.
Fantastic. Right, guys, that is wrapping up the 3rd hour. We'll be back again at 6 p.m. The worrisome threesome, I believe.
Sounds concerning, that one, yeah.
He's going to get the Warren and the Ben and the Jerry for the last hour, kicking off at 6 p.m. We'll finish off the day with another hobby hangout. Stu, did I show you my lightsaber stuff that I've been working on?
Run, Stu, run.
That may be euphemism. Ahsoka, though, is one of them much smaller and shorter than you might expect.
The colour may surprise you.
It might just look.
You're going Tanto on us. Is that
I'm doing a custom one, man. I'm doing a custom one, so
it's pretty good.
I'm gonna get myself. Basically, I'm just gonna build it out of Dystopian Wars bits. So I'm just gonna get a couple of toilet roll tubes and cover them in hot glue and roll them around. Right, dudes. Thank you. Big thanks to you, Stu. Free. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, guys.
Today. We will be back at 6 p.m. and we will round out this Blue Monday, which, I'll be fair, although I was reluctant to get out of bed this morning, I'm feeling pretty darn good now.
Yep. Certainly not feeling blue today, so been a good day.
Do you know what? I think it's helped. Immersing ourselves. I was about to say bathing myself with immersing ourselves in with the community really does help. So we'll have to get free to find out what other shit days there are in the year, and then we can do this. Okay, guys. If I don't know if anybody has pinged Justin to let him know that we're going to finish. But we will see you at around 6 p.m. Cheerio, dudes.
Bye, all.
Thanks.